like to contact the show, send us an email at liveonfourlegspodcast@gmail.com or get involved in the conversation on social media. Join the Pearl Jam Podcast community group on Facebook or follow us on Twitter at liveonfourlegspod.
All right, this next song's called Leash.
Is that like a setup? Is that a setup?
Oh, see, right when you get, right when, some of us on this stage have a problem with intimacy, and right when I get, we really, we're sharing a moment there, then I go ahead and lie to you. See, it's a moment, it's keeping your own personal space. So no, we don't have that song, but we have something even more spectacular and planned for you.
Indeed.
2 words, 3 syllables, Stone Gossard. And away we go.
You're listening to Live on Four Legs, the live Pearl Jam podcast experience, featuring
Mr. Stone Gossard. Fucking Cameron in the drum. Mr. Boom Gasper. You can call me Al, you can call me Ed, you just fucking call me, why don't you?
everybody now. Welcome to Live on Four Legs, a definitive live Pearl Jam podcast. And yes, this is the end of the U.S. tour that we're at right now on Wednesday. This is being recorded before the Sunday Ohana show, but we do know that something special happened at Dana Point on Friday night. We'll get into that a little bit, but it's kind of closing out the U.S. tour, so we can look back on that just a little bit and look forward to New Zealand and Australia very, very soon. November's going to hit, and yeah, we're not going to know it. It's about a month away, so get ready for that, especially you guys out in Australia that I know are very, very excited for that. But as promised, last week we did Atlantic City Night 1 from 2005, so why the hell not? Let's do Atlantic City Night 2, because this is a bit of a special run that they had here in a special venue, so why not cover it all? We're going to get into things pretty quickly. So Randy Sobel over here, John Farrar over there.
Hello, hello.
Hey, so let's get the whale in the room, not an elephant in the room, obviously. Let's get the whale in the room out of the way here, because this just doesn't happen anymore. We saw like 6 years ago, Evil Little Goat out of nowhere, and people still talk about that when you talk of, the rarities that you've seen. Evil Little Goat will be like the first that comes to people's minds. And now I think it has been surpassed by Whale Song, because nobody in their right mind would have ever imagined that it would have happened. And if you're saying that, I thought it could happen, you're going almost off of, I believe in miracles, I suppose. Like, I believe anything can happen. And the reason why you think that it wouldn't happen was because they need Jack Irons for it. That's a pretty obvious reason. However, they got the second best thing, and that would be the seed of Jack Irons, Zach Irons, to join up and do that with him. And for a song that they never played, for a song that they probably haven't thought about in 25 or so years, they knocked it out of the park. I was shocked at how good it was and how tight it was. It's one thing to pull out a surprise. And if you want, we can compare this to a really good comparison would be Hitchhiker, because Hitchhiker was a one and done. They have not played it since Manchester in 2012. And Hitchhiker was awful. Like, there's no other way around it. It was not a great performance from that show. And they hadn't brought it back since. But in comparison to that, they had their shit together with this, and Zach sounded tremendous on this as well. But boy, is this not one of the best moments of the year?
Oh yeah, I mean, this hasn't happened in years, and yeah, Evil Little Goat was very cool, but I think this is even beyond that because you're talking about, yeah, like someone's on it who's not in the band anymore. I mean, if someone had suggested it beforehand, I mean, it just would have laughed at them like, oh yeah, there's no chance in hell that they're gonna play Whale Song ever. Like, it's over and done with. But the rumor had gotten out that they had sound checked it, and it's just like, well, no, they didn't do that. People are grasping at straws. That's wishful thinking. There's no way. But he comes out and points to a woman up front, says, I think it'd be easier to say how many shows she had missed instead of how many shows she had been to. I think she held up 3 fingers like she'd only missed 3 shows all year, which is insane. Mentions the white whale, which after what we know, that kind of clicks like, okay, he's doing something. And then yeah, they bring out Zach, and he sounds almost just like his dad, and he comes out playing guitar. But he's in a band, AWOL Nation, which I've heard of them, but not really familiar. But sounded great, and he was into it. Yeah, it was a fantastic performance. I probably watched it 10 or 15 times in the last 24, 48 hours since it happened. But yeah, just can't get over the fact that they can still pull out something like this 34 years in, basically. The song was released in, 1999, maybe? The last song they recorded with Jack.
Yeah, I thought it was earlier than that. I thought it was like 97, but you could be right.
Yeah, it was on that Music for Our Mother Ocean Volume 3. You're talking about at least 25 years since the song was released. It's unheard of.
Yeah, you're right. It was 1999, which is kind of crazy that they release and put a song out, and think about easily more than a year, maybe even 2 years before that, they have this in the can, and they're like, yeah, let's put a Jack song in there. So I don't know if it was originally recorded for that and they just kept it in the can, or I have no idea. But
yeah, I think it was
look,
recorded for Yield. Yeah.
Okay, that would make sense, and it would make sense that they wouldn't put it on Yield. It's definitely, you got Push Me Pull Me as the weird one, so it would definitely kind of be a little bit of another oddball in there. But I think from a fan perspective here, and look, this is one of the things Ed said it, like everybody's looking for a white whale, no pun intended. This year didn't feel like the year where everything was coming back. It wasn't the year for Get Right. It wasn't the year for Just a Girl. Will it ever be? Probably not. But that's what I'm trying to get at here, is that before this show at Ohana, you weren't even getting stuff like Around the Bend or Parting Ways that really never show up. Every now and again, they would throw something in. I'm not even counting out of my mind anymore. That is barely a rare song as we stand right now. If you play it twice a year, I don't think that is considered anymore, but they kept it pretty much to the catalog that they were familiar with. And it took them until their second to last show in the US, or North America, I should say, to bust this out. When you're thinking about it, better late than never in this instance. So it was a great moment. We'll have a lot more time to talk about that. Let's see if it becomes one of the top moments of the year in our top 100, top 50 best of that we do for the website. So we'll see what happens with that. And yeah, it's something that people are going to be talking about for years and years and years to come, especially the people that made their way to the festival this weekend. So not a lot of extra tee up to go into this Atlantic City show. We talked about it last week. We talked about the venue. We talked about the GA, that they weren't doing a whole lot at the time. And it's just kind of one show feeding off the next. But the main storyline from this that we kind of teed up last week, because he had mentioned in the encore, he said something about, I was looking out the window, seeing the traffic and everything like that. And I said, you know what? that's probably the beginning of figuring out what Gone was. And it turns out that that was the case. So we get, and I think that this is the last time that this has happened, that we get a song that debuts well before a record comes out. And I'm not even talking about when Lightning Bolt came out, but they played songs off the record 2 days before the record. That doesn't count. I think this is the last one with any extended period of time that you're getting a sneak preview of the record before you even know the title of the record.
Yeah, he even mentions like we're working on a new record. He makes it sound like this isn't being considered for it. Like, oh, this is just a one-off thing that I wrote last night. And the way it sounded, it didn't sound like it was going to be on there. But of course, the song has definitely showed its worth, and glad it did.
Yeah, and that's going to be a pretty fun version that we talk about, and a lot to dissect with that. And I guess a little bit of, again, the shades of what Avocado would become with that performance. So that is the storyline for this. However, there are a lot of songs to be talked about and a lot of good performances to be talked about. So let's dive right in with the preset, which has some talking points here. So Ed comes out with his guitar and says, I used to play this song as a kid, but I haven't really played it a lot since. So I took the last few minutes and figured it out. If it doesn't work, I have all evening to make it up to you. So this song, well, I mean, you want obvious song and obvious place. Atlantic City is the song here. So
Down on the boardwalk, they're getting ready for a fight. Gonna see what them racket boys can do. Now there's trouble bustling from out of state, and the DA can't get no relief. Gonna be up from loud on the promenade, and the Grammy Commission saying on my skin on his feet. Now baby, everything dies, baby, that's the fact. Everything that dies someday comes back. Put your makeup on, put your hair on free. Meet me tonight in Atlantic City.
he'll discuss this later, actually going into Gone, that he was trying to figure out this song in his hotel room before kind of playing around with the chords very similar to Gone. And you can tell in this version that the recording's not that good, as you've probably heard. It's coming straight from video. It's not on the bootleg or anything like that. The preset's never on the bootleg. But it feels like he's playing the capo really high on the fretboard, like on the 5th or 6th fret. And when somebody does that, it feels like they are trying to play something really simplistic, because when you get down lower, it gets harder to actually strum those chords because the frets get smaller. So it's probably at the lowest spot that you can go in order to do that. And I think it kind of masks a little bit of chord change and stuff like that, and it kind of puts you into one spot with the song where you can't really change up tempo, you can't really change up sound. The chords all sound very, very similar. It's kind of almost, I don't want to say angelic in a way, but like it's very, very high pitched. But it kept the performance simple. He wanted to get it out there for this moment, and he did. And I didn't even think that the performance exactly sounded like Atlantic City, but he made it work for what it was.
Using the capo, it can kind of feel a little bit like a cheat code, like you're trying to make something easier than it actually is. Like you said, for simplistic reasons or whatever, but it is going to give you that higher tone on a guitar. It's going to give it a more trebly kind of sound. So it does make it sound different than a normal acoustic guitar would sound. But I think that he wanted to sound like more of a Springsteen thing. He obviously feels a lot of history and nostalgia with the song, talks about how they played it when he was a kid, and wants to do it justice. And I think he probably played around with it, channeling one of his heroes. You know, speaking of recording in bedrooms, you kind of put yourself back as a teenager, like figuring out these songs and playing it. I'm sure that was really special to him, and he wanted to kind of share that with this crowd. And like, yes, it is a little too on point to play a song named after the city you're in, but it must have been real cool.
He's going to do this much later in his career, where he will write a song about a city that he's in the span of the day that he's in it, and he doesn't even know how to play it. So Moline, similar to that. That's what it reminded me of right there. But he tells the audience that it'll be one of the experiences where you'll have to pace yourselves. Oh, yeah, let it be that. Slater-Kinney goes on, and it's notable because we get a couple of band member moments here. Like mentioned last week, I think Ed comes back out for The Promised Land, and we also have, this was something that Slater-Kinney was doing a bunch at the time, they were covering Mother by Danzig, and we saw Mike, Cameron, and Jeff wearing like a wig of some sort that made him look like a werewolf.
The Devil Lock, the Misfits Danzig wig, yeah.
It was that with that. I'm not a Misfits guy. Surprisingly, with all my punk background, I am not Misfits. I never cared for it. And Cameron's on cowbell. So this is kind of another way of like, hey, everybody, if you got to see the opening band, then you got a little treat.
Yeah, this song I remember that takes me totally back to high school, like 1994, 1995. You see Jeff with the Devil Lock thing, like you mentioned, and Matt starts off on cowbell, and then halfway through, he's like, nope, this isn't good enough, and like runs behind the drum set and starts helping out Janet on that. It's just a fun thing.
Yep, nothing too crazy. And again, if you're in that building, you're enjoying seeing the guys out there. They're just having fun in a place that they don't get to play places like this. So, all right, let's dig into the main set. So what's going to open the show here has only opened a Pearl Jam show 3 other times. And for the last 2 years, I've been begging for them to start opening with this again. And I hope that they can think about it and seriously consider it. Because I know that 2024 is not 2005. It's 19 years later, but they can make present tense sound this good and give it the same feel that they did at this show, because boy, oh boy, you were in for it. You immediately set a tone. The crowd is involved, and I think those are the special moments when you think of the crowd getting involved on a song right away. Release obviously comes to mind. When they do Small Town, they come in right away. But this is a little bit different because what was used as a kick down a chair moment in the last couple of years to go in like a lamb and out like a lion, that was the song that got you there. And to come into a whole set to start that way and fire you up, and then you're going to go into songs like Do the Evolution and Save You and Insignificance, that right there gets you fired up for the rest of what's to come. And I think this crowd was absolutely, I mean, even more than night one, and we talked about the crowd a lot night one, this was an awesome crowd. And I think because Present Tense kicks it off the way it does, the crowd is invested the whole way in this and just gets better and better as it goes.
Yeah, I can't believe that this hasn't opened a show since 2013, that London, Ontario show before Wrigley. That seems wrong to me. Like, it feels like it's happened since then. I know they've probably played it in the 2 spot and a 3 spot a few times, but yeah, it definitely needs to come back and open. It's fantastic. And you talk about, like, getting a crowd going right away. Not many songs have the build and the opening that grabs you just from the very beginning like Present Tense does. Jeff, I thought, was amazing on this. This is a really, really good Jeff show. I'm going to mention him a bunch of times, especially on the build right before it breaks loose at the end. Jeff is just going off on those bass runs. It sounds incredible. Ed is playing a Rickenbacker guitar on this, which is unusual for him, I think. And he has a little trouble with the little finger pick, the high part. And I think that's probably due to the choice of guitar. Rickenbackers are notoriously hard to play like that. They have really high action, like the string is far away from the fretboard, so you really have to be really precise on those things. You could tell, I think he maybe wasn't used to that, and that's why it screwed him up a little bit, but it didn't take away from the performance at all. Just fantastic.
No, yeah, that was the little thing, but I think overall, they got everybody firing all cylinders right away. Sometimes you need to ease into things and you need to find it. They had no problem finding it at this show. It happened instantly, and I think that's when the stars align and you're just set to strap a rocket on this show and just pulverize your crowd.
Oh, you can come to terms and realize you're the only one who can forgive yourself. It makes much more sense to live here in the present.
It's Do the Evolution, Save You, Insignificance. Evolution, I thought, was scorching to follow that. And look, they played Evolution the night before. Who would have guessed that they would have played it on back-to-back nights? Gee, I wonder who. Probably Stone, because we mentioned last week how awesome Stone's solos were, but now I feel like it was kind of a passing thought then, but we could dig into it a little bit further. This may be the best era of Do the Evolution for Stone. Anytime he's on that second solo, you can tell he's got the face, he's scrunching his face a little bit, and you can tell he's feeling it. He doesn't want to stop. He just continues doing it as Ed's going back to screaming, and like it's his In Fuego moment. And that Save You follows up, and you're going to get another Stone solo yet again. That to me is earning of a moment that would come later, you know what I mean? So Stone was white hot to start this show, and that in turn made the band white hot.
It goes back off of present tense too. Like you can't open with present tense and then go into like oceans or wash. You have to keep that energy going, and like Do the Evolution I think is perfect for that. I too, like, as soon as you see Stone go off on that solo, it's like, oh my god, here we go. This is one of the best I've heard in a very long time. And again, it just makes you think, like, he's so unassuming over there on the right side by himself, but if he had a chance, he can take those solos and run with it. You know, he's not Mike McCready, but he can shred when he needs to. It sounds awesome. This beginning doesn't waste any time getting right into it. It felt like they were just ready to go after night one. Like, let's just get out there and just keep that energy going.
Oh yeah, it was all gas. And I think your key into that is the transition from Evolution into Save You was absolutely nasty. I haven't heard this good of a transition in years. It was as perfect can get here. And again, as mentioned, the Save You solo is batshit good. It was just an awesome highlight. We talked about it a lot on last week's episode. It was an awesome highlight from night one, and this one follows suit. Although Ed didn't collapse on his mic this time, you feel the electricity coming through and just soaring through Insignificance too. You get off to that hot start, and Ed's like gyrating when he's strumming on Insignificance. His knees kind of like moving up and down. You can tell he's getting a little bit possessed. He's really in the moment. And another little Stone part in Insignificance. That little part in the break leading up to the big finish sounded phenomenal from Stone. These three songs really meld together so well.
Even though it's 2005 and you don't think it's unusual to get a Riot Act and a Binaural song back to back, like, these are the only ones they do at the show, and even though those are the previous two records. So very cool. I mean, Save You, again, one of their most underrated songs in my opinion. Like, that song always burns, especially in this era. Cameron's always good on it. Jeff just smokes on it again. Those two songs back to back early on tell you that, like, yeah, they're feeling something tonight. I loved it.
This is how a night 2 is supposed to be done, ladies and gentlemen, especially if you got back-to-back nights. I believe this was a weekend. Don't quote me on that, but this is how it's supposed to be done. So Ed speaks here and says, we're all getting back into the groove here. How you feeling? A lot of you were in the hotel looking a lot worse for wear last night, but seems like you made it out just in time. But like the planet itself, we're all in the same boat together. On behalf of the group, you're already taking care of each other better than last night, so thank you for that. And this song, McCready Starts, goes like this, which McCready fucks up whether it's purposefully or not. And Ed comments, yeah, just like that, to get into Given a Fly, which is going to be a little section of Given Fly, Dissident and Even Flow. Another very, you go from some Stone songs here to a couple of Mike songs here. But the most important part of this, and I know we have an Even Flow solo and everything like that, but Dissident alert here, Ed does it. Ed does the ending to Dissident. When it comes later than the 90s, for him to elevate his voice at the end, and granted, it wasn't with full power or anything like that, but he wasn't doing the escape is never the safest path. Like, no, he went for it as much as he could or as much as he wanted to. And that's enough for me to say, good on you, Ed. I'm glad I got to hear that.
That's one thing that he definitely can't do anymore. I think we haven't seen Dissonant at all this year. And I think that's why he just can't do it. So whenever we get to go back and hear it, it's always like, oh yeah, that's the way it sounded back when it was one of the highlights. It's not one of my favorite songs off of Versus, but when we got it in St. Louis a couple of years ago, it was like, wow, this song can still get a crowd behind it and still has some power behind it.
The crowd is giving him something, so he's going to give them something in return. That's always a good sign right there. Even Flow, I thought last week's version took a little bit of time to develop, but this week, again, night 1 versus night 2, this is where it starts right from the jump. You're getting the shred fest, you're getting all the tricks. Mikey just breaking the sound barriers with some of those pitches and putting on a clinic in this one. The nod goes to the crowd, though. Another version of Even Flow where Ed can just take a back seat and just let them go. And it was thunderous. All 7 of these performances, and Given a Fly we didn't say too much about, but they were lightning and thunder. And the crowd, I think, was probably the thunder and Mike was the lightning on this.
I noticed Jeff on this too. I thought Jeff had an incredible groove going on Even Flow. And we talk about Stone all the time, but yeah, listen to Jeff on this. Sounds amazing. He's doing things I haven't heard him do in Even Flow in a long time, if ever. After Mike finishes, there's a little tease of what would come in the next year with Cameron. Feels like he took a little bit of a short solo after that. Like, let me see if I can play around with this. And then, yeah, Ed gives it to the crowd, and it's all on from there.
Big Mike chant after this. And Ed says, we had to switch guitars just now because the last one pulled a muscle. I wondered about that. Did that guitar know that that would ever happen to it in its lifetime back in 1959, which we know now to not be true? One minute it's playing Peggy Sue, and the next minute it's getting the shit beat out of it by Mike. 2005, this one is about a guy from the 1800s. That gets you in a little section right here of Leatherman, Immortality, Lukin' Not For You, which is the common combo. But I think Immortality here is probably the bright spot. It just moved. And speaking of bright, it felt a little bit more upbeat. It got to the point a little bit quicker. It felt a little bit more like a positive outlook to it instead of tapping into the soul-crushing versions of Immortality. And that can work too. It's sort of the same way that you can see Footsteps sometimes. Footsteps can have the dual personalities where it can be sad and depressing, but it can also be resilient. I felt like this was a very resilient version of Immortality. And then when you get to the solo too, at the end, you can kind of see where you're at with that. So I want to know from you what you thought about the ending before I get into that. What did you think about this version?
Oh, incredible. I mean, really, like, soared. This show has those songs, like you start with Present Tense, which has that, Do the Evolution, I thought, Insignificance and Given to Fly, Even Flow. This whole show, they're putting in these songs and they're just kind of riding it as it goes, like each one kind of leading into the next. It's a masterclass in set construction, and the back half is even better than the front half, I thought. But the ending, I mean, that's still one of the best moments that they have. I mean, even going back to those 1995 versions where it was 7-8 minutes long, they can still get into that. And yeah, Cameron just takes that and makes it his own. Stone and Jeff just locked in together. I mean, that last 2 minutes of Immortality is some of the best things you'll ever hear them do.
Yeah, as far as Cameron's role in this, I thought it was very interesting because usually when you think about what Jack did with it, he was all over the place. Like, he was just trying different things and just blowing you away when you're doing it. And then Cameron can do that too when he's on the song. But this just felt like he kept one pounding mechanical rhythm going the whole entire time. And that almost like hypnotized you a little bit. I don't remember a time where it has been quite like that with what Cameron's doing, because Cameron can sometimes be all over the place. Again, that's your moment to kind of solo, but he's deciding to take more of a methodical path to this, and it worked so well with it. I was very impressed. So for Lucan's sake, was this a damn near perfect rendition of Lucan? I know I've said that before. I know I've asked that question, but I think that this one needs a little extra dissection to it, because I didn't hear a damn thing wrong with it.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the tying it in with Not For You makes him kind of pace it a little better, because knowing they have to hit it right there and go right into Not For You, so he can't be out of breath and can't just go at it 100 miles an hour. We've been on a pretty good run with Lucan. There's been some really good versions lately. The Lucan Not For You, again, very, very cool. They did this a bunch of times. This is not the first time, of course, but the combo, again, just works so well. These two songs kind of found each other and work really well together. This is just one of those shows where everything was clicking. Whatever they threw out there was working.
Yeah, and even Not For You, I think, again, you talk about crowd participation, getting the audience involved. Ed kind of knew that they were on something during this, so he's plucking some high notes, and he's just playing up towards the crowd's participation as they pound out some hey chants on it. And it's good crowd control. It's good working them and knowing and kind of seeing where they would go with it. And Ed's just like, hey, we don't have to go back into the song if you don't want us to. we can just do what you want to do, and that's going to make for a moment right there. Another very good version of Not For You. Another great Stone solo, and only the 5th rendition of the Modern Girl tag. This was very early on. This was not something that was common in Pearl Jam lexicon just yet. So very early stages of that.
When they started doing it, it was like, oh man, I miss that original Not For You outro. Like, I love that original way, just the plucking up high at the end. But yeah, they really turned Modern Girl into something very cool. But I mean, this version of Not For You, too, I mean, this is shortly after he had become a dad. He throws in a couple of references like, oh, my table now seats 3, lucky me. That has a different vibe to this Not For You than you would normally get. The meaning of it kind of changed. And there's a completely different melody in the breakdown they go into. Sounds very cool. There's some haze in there, like there's a little bit of a breakdown, and yeah, this is a highlight for sure.
Ed is switching guitars in between Not For You and Wish List, and he wants to know from the crowd if they're screaming Bruce or boom. There's a nice little melody that Stone is playing behind this as well. It just kind of keeps going as Ed is talking here. He says, if it's okay with you, we're in no hurry, we'll be here a while. He compliments the crowd on their clapping during the song and said it had a real feel of community to it. He doesn't know if they are from Jersey or Philly, but he appreciates however they made it there tonight. He mentions playing Pittsburgh, opening up for the Rolling Stones a couple nights before, and said the worst seat here in the Borgata was 10th row in Pittsburgh. So, yeah, huge discrepancy there. But the crowd involvement almost made you forget that there was a war going on. So he's starting to think a little bit here. It's just one of those moments where we do get a little political. We were in Canada for a month. It took that long to know what it was like to be in a country not at war. And he talks about learning to live with it and talks about fighting to get our health back before going into Wish List, which the tag is going to have a similar vibe to it. And he's kind of go off and do an improv here. And he's going to talk about some of the themes that have come up during this time about the war, where he's kind of tired of it. He doesn't want politicians putting money towards this. It works really well, and I think it was very, very similar to the one that I saw at my first show. I think in that one he's like, oh, I wish I could be vice president for Obama. He's our man. And this had a very similar vibe to it. One thing outside of the lyrics I think we got a little bit debunk here is that if you look on some of the websites, Live Footsteps, which we talked to Dave about, we're going to see what we can do with this one. It had been said that there's a Believe You Me tag, which that is a Bad Radio song. Personally, there's some words that fit this. I think they kind of do that. I feel it, I feel it, I feel it, but it's a little bit different. I wouldn't call that a direct tag of the song, but the improv itself is very good here.
Yeah, it's one of those Bush era wanting the war to be over improvs. You can tell he's feeling the fatigue of it. You know, they'd been through it all, that 2003, 2004 vote for change, now 2005, Bush reelected. It's kind of like, oh, we're still having to go through this. This is still happening. And he's like, feels so fucking far away. Think of living in a world that's safe. That was kind of the feeling at the time. Like, oh, we're just so tired of this. It's still going on. Felt like it was just going to go on forever. But yeah, the Bad Radio thing is tough because I think people kind of latch on to those whenever there's any kind of similarity. It definitely is some of the lyrics, and I get why it's there, why people put it on there. But in 2005, is he really going back to a bad radio song? Is that really in the forefront of his mind 17 years after that band broke up? I don't know. I mean, it is some of the lyrics, but it's not the same. The melody is hard because like that, I don't know. I'm 50-50 on it. It might be a little bit of a stretch.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that him saying these words are necessarily because of bad radio, but sometimes you get, especially if you're an artist, if you're a lyricist, if you're a poet, you get some, whether they're mantras, and I feel it is one of those things that you just blurt out. If you feel it that moment, you just blurt it out. It might be just one of those things that he just says sometimes, and you can hear it at many of these shows that are the top of the top shows. I'm going to go back to Corduroy from MSG in 2010. I feel it. I can feel it. Like, that's just such a very simple line that I'm sure when he connects a Pearl Jam show, a crowd, and, you know, a moment that feels like he can take that energy and put it on his shoulders, I think that's just the first thing he thinks of. So whether or not you tie it into bad radio, I just think it's always kind of been a thing that's been in his head. That's going to be my guess. I don't think it's necessarily a tie-in at all, but something that just, you know, sometimes you just say stuff and you continue to say it and it just becomes part of your life. So that's where I am with that. Well, while all this is going on, I think it was a couple songs before, probably in like the Leatherman, Immortality, Not For You area, the crowd has been chanting for Leash, and it does continue on a little bit. So Ed just blurts it out. He says, all right, this next song's called Leash. And the crowd's like, what? No way, no way. Do you really think that Ed would actually do that? Do you think he would just say, yeah, we're going to play Leash. Okay, play it. Like, no,
he's just trolling them. Yeah.
He would build it up. He'd be like, you know, back in 1991, we were at the so-and-so, the 930 Club in DC, and he would, you know, he would make a story out of it. He'd make a thing out of it, or he'd say nothing at all, and you'd just hear that bass line come in and be completely shocked. No, he was telling everybody to shut the fuck up, I think is what he was doing. It's kind of like that situation that we saw with the Spin a Black Circle guy that wanted to play it on drums, where he's like, I hear you. It's not going to happen, but I hear you. Just, that's enough.
Yeah. That was the thing. Like, Leash was the one. It hadn't been played in so long. Stuff had started to come back, and that was the one that people were focused on. But they would get it the next year, but this wasn't the time.
Yep. Ed's got to do it. Ed's got to pick it himself. But it was the year for Lost Dogs. And this song that they're going to get into next, which is sung by, somebody that was white hot very early on in this show, Stone Gossard, who asked if the Leash thing was a setup. Lost Dogs had been out for about less than a year at that point. So a lot of those songs, Sad, that we talked about last week, we're going to talk about You in this show. A lot of those songs are getting spliced in now that are seen as, to a lot of people, as white whale songs, especially those that were collecting back in the 90s that got their hands on everything. But Ed mentioned that some of us on the stage had a problem with intimacy, and just as we're trying to have a moment, I go ahead and I lie to you, and the crowd is pretty pissed, connecting to Leash, of course. So we don't have that song, but we have something more spectacular planned for you. 2 or 3 syllables, Stone Gossard. Here's one that you haven't heard unless you've been listening to some shows on this tour. Feel free to sing along. Don't give me no lip. obviously it's only been played, I believe the number is 14 times. We've probably covered it maybe max 5 or 6, and not in the last calendar year, I don't think. So it had been a while since I've watched a version of this, and I don't necessarily remember that Stone didn't play guitar on this song, because he plays it on Mankind, and I'm going to guess that in later versions of this he plays it on, but isn't it just the weirdest thing on the planet to watch Stone without a guitar in his hand? Feels freaking naked. Like he doesn't know what to do with his arms.
He's so awkward without the guitar. And I think when I saw this at Wrigley in 2016, I think he was playing guitar on it. So I think he probably was like, yeah, I gotta have something in my hands when I'm singing. This is not gonna work. But we talked about like he could be a lead guitarist in a lot of other bands, but he is not meant to be a front man. Yeah, he doesn't know what to do with his hands. He's just, it's Stone, it's endearing. He's kind of like bouncing around. Here's the bridge, baby. Like, he's having the time of his life. But you just want to be like, play the guitar, dude. Give him something to hold on to that he's comfortable with. Don't take him too far out of his comfort zone.
Oh, the bridge thing is a total throwback, because this song debuts in Ottawa earlier in the month. And the whole thing was that he needed to let Ed know when the bridge was, because it kind of, it comes kind of out of nowhere. It's not like at a point where the measure ends. So you really need to be on point with it. So in that version in Ottawa, he just screams out, bridge, bridge, bridge. And that's how the band kind of knows to get into it. And he does it again here. I would love to go back to the other versions to see how many times he's going to be, hey, mention the bridge. Hit the bridge. Come on, guys, hit the bridge.
He has to conduct the band. Like, don't forget, here it is.
Right. Mm-hmm. But, hey, he throws in a couple of woos here. And look, you have a comparable moment to Leash when you're thinking about, like, moments. Stone singing is a major moment. And the New Jersey crowd wasn't satisfied, because they will go back to chanting for Leash. But I don't think they went home unhappy. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, we haven't seen Stone sing all 2024, so not something that happens very, very often.
Add in your Pearl Jam finally played Grammy Out of Control, future Randy here, if it happens.
Ooh.
Hi, it's future Randy. Not the first time that I've had to do this on this tour, which means I guess we're pretty good predictors, I suppose. About 2 hours after recording this, we get the news that, Grammy Out of Control is OTOTO and played for the first time and maybe the last time ever. And although we had Whale Song, and we had talked about Whale Song earlier in the episode, I guess this is the time to give a little bit of love to Grammy because of Stone and what everybody's been talking about the last 24 hours here, recording this little bit on Monday, is Stone dancing and Stone showing emotion and just having such a great time and doing his cowabungas and everything like that. So never say never, you guys. It's always in the cards. And although Stone had about 30 shows or so to do a Mankind or a Lip, it didn't matter because he did a Grammy. And I think we all got out of control over that. So to steal a little bit from a current pop star out there, I would like to sing a little song before getting into it. And that is O-T-O-T-O-T-O. Enjoy the rest of the episode. Ed says not only can he do what you just saw, which I consider vocal styling, he can write a damn good song too. This one is from a long, long time ago that he wrote when we first met. The ending of this show is going to be Breath, State of Love and Trust, and Porch. The crowd is excellent on Breath, doing the ooh. It felt like those moments that were key-in moments for the crowd, the I would take you there. They took everything and just ran with it.
Here it comes, grasp what you can. It's all something inside your head.
also the first time that they had done the singles combo since 1998, which I'm sure when you hear Breath and you get State of Love and Trust right after, it's going to be clicking in people's heads like, whoa, I don't think I've ever seen the singles song together. It wasn't really a thing. It does happen once or twice a tour now that you'll get it, and it's definitely been back-to-back, and it's been in the same shows. I've gotten it a couple of times back-to-back over the years, but I can see people that are keyed into this being like, wow, that's pretty amazing that they did the single songs together. I know it seems a little bit more common to get it now, but back then, I think it's a really big deal.
Oh, absolutely. Breath especially, like, he's trying to not necessarily appease, but like make a note to the Leash people, like, okay, here's one that you did campaign for and we did bring it back, so it can be done. I mean, yeah, I thought Breath was awesome. Everything you want out of a version of Breath. Yeah, to kick into State of Love and Trust right after, it just kicks it up a notch too. And Ed and Mike playing off each other and having a good time. This is a fantastic way to end a main set.
Yep, the crowd all over those ayo, ayo, ayos. And in between the songs, Ed's going to shout out the infamous Ricky Ramone here. And you do hear Jeff do a little bit of the Blitzkrieg bop. Ed tickles the notes of Slow Porch to start Porch, and the crowd sings along. There have been kind of many ways to skin cats with versions of Porch. Now they've seemed to gone back to just getting right into it, and maybe not necessarily doing fast Porch at all, but it hasn't been the build-up moment, the slow Porch, the bluesy Porch. So this one is really kind of one of the ones where they really take their time and let it develop over about like 30 seconds or so, which Fast Porch has been in the Live on Four Legs lexicon since we first started, and we are all 100% in on Fast Porch. This just happened to be the time period where they were moving away from that.
The crowd is not used to this new version of it, though. They do the thing where they sing along, and normally Ed will like let them do it and then be like, nope, you're wrong, and then start it again and wait for them to finish and then restart it. But here he goes with them. He's like, all right, I'm with you, and just keeps going with it. That's something I haven't heard very often.
You got to think about here too that Ed usually drops the guitar after the intro, but he's playing on most of the solo here. I don't remember ever seeing that. Did you notice that? Like, do you remember the last time you saw that?
No. And again, just like in Not For You, there's a very different riff in the bridge of this. They go into like a completely different...
Oh, I call that the Insignificance riff.
Yeah. Sounds very different than what you normally get on a Porch Jam.
Ed does drop it at one point to finish up the song, finds a new spot on the stage to entertain the audience at, and Mike does some really dark stuff on the solo too. That sounds very, very good. That's going to end your main set before getting into a very important moment that's going to follow right at the top of the encore. So it is the encore. Let's pause for station identification and talk about the things we like to talk about, even though our Patreon right now is on, well, not Patreon, on hiatus. It's our instant reaction episodes that's going to be on hiatus for a month before we wait for Australia and New Zealand. But we do have a couple new patrons to thank this week, so let's thank Joseph Swam and Dave Sanford. Thank you guys for joining up with the many and many, many that have been joining up lately. So look, take a second here and just remind you guys of what you can get when you do donate to our Patreon, because $1 a month is huge for us. The amount of people that donate that and have continued to donate just $1 throughout the years has just grown and grown and grown, and that contributes so much to what we're doing per month. It really does, and it really adds up. So by doing that, you get everything that's on the Patreon. I know that there are other Patreons where there are different levels where you gotta basically like things are locked, and $1 will just be like, hey, pay for a coffee. But $5 is like, hey, get this thing unlocked. And then $10 is like, get this thing unlocked. And $100 is like, hey, get a thank you on the show. Like, people really go kind of far with it. And I've never seen that to be necessary. If you are paying us $1, I want you guys to get your buck's worth. Not to say that our content is worth $1, but every little piece of content that comes on Patreon is all accessible for you. Everything is accessible. However, we do have other tiers. The $5 tier does get you a little bit more, and that is the episode request. And look, we are coming down to not a lot of episode requests for next year. We have a couple, but we can use some more. So if you've been donating $1, if you haven't been donating at all, and you're thinking about a show that you want to hear us cover, then that's a way to get it done. You know, a lot of people love to hear their shows. You might be from somewhere where Pearl Jam hasn't been in a long time, a show that maybe you think that nobody talks about, including us, that we're not thinking about. Those are the best Patreon requests that we can get, because that gets us to dig into a show that we would not have even thought about beforehand. So you guys are helping us get to the 1100 or however that we're going to get to at the end of this whole podcast thing, however many shows they end up with. So that all comes with the help of the Gigaleg tier. Yes, we still call it the Gigaleg tier. Tribute to Gigaton, of course. Why not? It's still a good record. But that comes at $5 a month if you want to contribute and get the episode request for that. And also, what you get with that is the bootleg of the week. I know, guys, I have been falling flat with it. I plan to do it again. I think a lot of it is due to WeTransfer. It used to be a 7-day transfer. Now it's a 3, so it makes things kind of annoying. But I'm going to get back into it. I promise you guys. So for the $5 Gigaleg and the Horizon Leg tier, $10 a month, that is a bootleg a week of the show that we're going to cover the following week. Get involved, guys. We want you guys to be listening and then talking about the shows. So if that's something that you're into, if you like listening to the shows beforehand, then that is a huge perk for you guys. But also the Horizon Leg tier, that's $10 a month. That helps us out big time with our funding for our website. And also you get a little profile on the website. If you haven't had a profile on the website, get in touch. I will make sure that you get a profile. That'll be my next little thing to work on there. And let's work on getting some people some profile episodes that have been subscribing to Horizon Leg, because the profile episodes are... yeah, I know you guys are going to want those. So if you're interested in that, if you haven't gotten one yet, reach out and we want to get those done. So we mentioned the tiers. Here's the way to join. Patreon.com/live on 4 legs. Way 1. Way 2. Download the Patreon app and search for Live on 4 Legs. We promise we're the one. There's no argument there. There's going to be nothing else that pops up. And then number 3, if you want to go on liveon4legs.com, get some extra stuff there, including the Concertpedia articles. And I am starting to work on some more video stuff with the tour footage that I've gotten. So as that'll come as time comes on, I got some Philly stuff that I want to work on. I got some MSG stuff that I want to work on. So keep that in mind. That'll all be on the website. It'll all be through our YouTube account as well. So you can go on liveon4legs.com. Any page you see at the top, it says become a patron. It's a big orange font. You just click it, you join. I think that gets you a profile on liveon4legs.com, which is good. So it works out in everybody's favor. All right. Back to the rock. We'll get to some more exclusive episodes as time comes along too. Now that we have a little bit of time in between the tour, we can talk about it a little bit more. But that'll be something that we think about when it comes to 2025, as well as reorganizing some of what happens over on the Patreon exclusive content. So stay tuned for all of that. Now, really back to the rock. Ed says, I don't know what it takes to get up to the front or get in the room, but we aren't going to leave after all that dedication. We're working on a new record. It's coming out in such an interesting way. We're holding on to these songs so it'll be a one big surprise when it comes out next year. Last night, or the night before, I was starting out in Atlantic City trying to learn the Bruce song, Atlantic City, but I couldn't remember how it went, so I ended up writing one. I'm going to play that one for you. It's only a day old. Let's see how this goes.
No more upset mornings, no more trying evenings. It's the American dream I am disbelieving. When the gas in my tank feels like money in the bank, I'm gonna blow it all this time. Take me one last ride. For the lights of the city, they only look good when I'm speeding. I wanna leave them all behind me, 'cause this time I'm gone, I'm gone, I'm going for it. Oh, this time I'm gone. In the far off distance, as my taillights fade, no one thinks to witness, but they will someday. Feel like a question is forming, and the answer's far. I will be what I could be once I get out of this town. For the lights of the city, they have lost all their feeling. I wanna leave them all behind me, 'cause this time I'm gone. This time I'm going for it. Oh, this time I'm gone. Nothing is everything. If nothing is everything, I will have it. Oh, if nothing is everything, then I will have it. I'm gone.
The live debut of Gone. It's rather incredible, and how this whole thing went about, because again, you just don't see it now. There was no YouTube at the time. There were really no cell phones that took video at the time. So all it was word of mouth. You go on the board the next day, maybe somebody had a camera there that took video. The little bits of video that it took in such low quality in 2005, maybe somebody had that, but it turns into lore and it becomes one of these things that people, and I totally get putting it on the Christmas single so people don't really go crazy over that, but it is so unique within what they do that it all developed this way, and that it's just Ed on this too makes it feel raw. It really makes it feel like you're getting the seed being planted here. Very well done. It's very exciting to dig so deeply into, because there's so many different avenues to go off of here.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like, other than the Gigaton stuff and the Dark Matter stuff, we haven't gotten a chance to talk about a debut of a song in a long time. So yeah, this was amazing. And yeah, how cool is it that like we have the hotel room recording from the fan club single? Like that's something you almost never get, the original version of the song, like the germ of the idea. And oh, it takes me back to like you said, the pre-YouTube era. I mean, it's so sad that that's gone now, that they won't do this anymore because of cell phones and things like that. And they know there'll be 14 different subpar versions on YouTube the next day, that they won't do it, but they still should. I mean, songs like this, it benefits like the record to play these songs live before you go in and record them. And that's just something that bands hardly ever do anymore. But this is kind of the last one before the iPhone era. I think iPhone was like '07 or '08. Like
Yeah,
it wasn't
07.
too far after this that those came into prevalence. But this is amazing. I mean, you hear him playing it. I mean, it just feels like he's still figuring it out, and like it's so new that like it's got this energy to it, and like you hear the crowd too. People are just transfixed, like you're getting something that you hardly ever get. The guy just wrote the song yesterday and he's already playing it at his show. That's just something that's only a Pearl Jam thing. No, there aren't many other bands that would have the guts to pull that off. But yeah, the performance is incredible. Another great underrated song that needs to come back in a big way. And yeah, I absolutely loved it.
So the performance and what I've took out of the performance, because obviously just Ed on an electric guitar, to dissect the song and the pieces of the song, what really captures me when you think about it is the way that they lead into the chorus, this town, like to lead into that and then to build off of that. And my thing before listening to this was going to be like, okay, how does this translate without a band, without the percussion behind you, without the bass behind you, without boom behind you? And it soars exactly the same just by the way he's strumming on this, takes it to that same level where I almost forgot that everything else was absent from this
Hmm.
because of how captivating his rhythm was. That's a phenomena that I don't know if I can explain, but it goes to show you that he knew from the time that he had stepped in and wrote it that he had something with it and that he was at least comfortable enough because that sound could reverberate in a room like that. And it just worked.
The way he plays it, it's similar to what he would do with the Into the Wild stuff. And the themes are very similar. Like someone who's leaving, obviously gone, is it would have fit perfectly in on that soundtrack. But he's able to kind of like use the dynamics of the guitar to kind of build the tension, and like yeah, he can make that song soar just by changing the strumming pattern and doing different things. But yeah, it reminded me a lot of what he does on like Far Behind and Rise and some of the better stuff on Into the Wild.
Yeah, I can see that. Absolutely. That's the way he was writing songs at the time. And although I mentioned that it feels raw, it can feel raw without feeling empty. Let's put it that way.
Sure.
It felt
Yeah.
like it traveled. If I'm in that crowd, I am fired up for this record. Whatever this record was going to be, I'm fired up for it after this song. So Ed invites Jeff onto the stage, and we hear a fan say, B-Girl. Well, you're right, fan. And I think they not only says that, he says, B-Girl, you're gonna die. He just screams, you're gonna
Yeah.
die.
Yeah.
So Ed says they were going to save it for Philly, but no, we're not doing that. So B-Girl here, it's the same thing as always, guys. I never have a damn thing to say on B-Girl because it doesn't change. It's a nice, sweet song, and they do their thing and move on.
I thought Jeff played it really well. I mean, the couple of times I've seen it, Jeff can get a little bit lost, but they were together on this one. It sounded really good.
The one thing I did notice is that Ed kind of gave him a smirk during the change your mind part, and that in the original version that they did for Rockline, that's the part where he's kind of like giggling during, and I wonder if that kind of came to his head because I always notice that. We don't have a studio recording for that, so there wasn't another take that
Right.
they can use, so always just stuck with it.
And a tie into two songs that were kind of debuted right after they were written.
True. Ed asked the crowd if anyone is there that got married in the last day, and he shouts out, 2 gentlemen here on the left. That's wonderful. And asks if a lady with a cap, because it wasn't the 2 gentlemen. It was a lady that was with them, and I'm sure they were joking around or something like that. But a lady with the cap invites them onto the side of the stage to ask them some questions, whether or not they can prove their union. And Slater-Kinney at this time is invited on stage. We'll get into them. So they're going to play one for the newlyweds, and he keeps asking, want them on stage? I want them on stage. And says, yep, this is one of my worst ideas. And since they don't show up at first, he says, apparently they've gotten divorced. It has a lot of good one-liners in this show. Nicely done. So Harvest Moon and Nothing Man are back to back in this. And they end up showing up. It's a guy and a girl. They're dancing behind Eddie during this. It's a sweet but a little bit awkward of a moment because after like the first little bit, they just, okay, do we just keep swaying behind Ed? And they look at each other and laugh a little bit, but they're both like, should we be here kind of deal. But also, we don't know if like they were lying to get on that stage at all. Like it, I don't know.
The guy is very awkward, like as you would expect. He's probably very nervous to be up there, and you know, he's like, do I kiss her? Like he goes in, and it looked like he missed her mouth completely at one point. Like she's more paying attention, and to make it even more nervous for them, like Ed turns around and is singing right to them in their face through the last half of the
harmonica
song.
Right at them. Yeah,
that's weird. Yeah, and like, yeah, they're just like, okay. She seemed more into it, like, oh, I'm having fun. He was just like, what do I do here? Do they want us to make out? Do they want us to just dance? Like, that guy was totally lost.
Well, that's okay. Look, not everybody's going to get on that stage and, you know, take over the moment. So that he got on the stage at all is impressive. However, now the Slater-Kinney thing. So there's a song that comes later in the set that I've always taken issue with that Slater-Kinney joins on during this era. And although Harvest Moon is the same way, I've never really cared or had any sort of take on their involvement on Harvest Moon at all. But you got to think, before I get into a little bit of that, Harvest Moon is a song that if I were to make a top 25 songs of my life, that would be on it somewhere, rather high. I don't know about top 10, but top 15 for sure. So I hold it in pretty high regard. I love Corin Tucker. I think her voice is fantastic in the setting of Slater-Kinney. However, with the 3 of them there, I don't think harmonizing is their strong suit at all. It really does a discredit to the song, I think.
Really?
Yeah, because they're not in tune, they're not in key at all. It's grating. It doesn't feel like that well put together in the set. Like, again, like the harmonizing just feels completely off. And the sentiment is nice, but I think the characters are wrong. I just don't think that that's what they're there for. That's not what they do in Slater-Kinney. Harvest Moon is not a punky song at all. It's just not who they are.
That's a harsh take for Slater-Kinney. Yeah, I will take the other side. I think it's nice to have the female backing vocals. You don't usually get that at a Pearl Jam show. They're there as a way for, you know, Ed to say thanks for opening up the show and to bring them out, like we've seen them do with openers before. And yeah, I can't speak for Janet. Quasi, not as familiar with them, her side of their band where she sings, but Corin and Carrie, they have great voices. I think they can hold their own. It's not meant to be taken too seriously. They're there to have fun with it and to kind of treating it as more of an informal thing, where I think you would probably rather them be more reverent and take it a little bit more seriously. But by this point, they're probably just there to just have fun and dance around, and it's just a good time.
I just think it's the wrong cast. That's it. I just don't think it works for who they are. You know? I don't think it's anything about being serious. I think the song itself, you know, it's a sweet song, and you want to hear melodic voices on it. And I think that just takes me out of it a little bit. But, you know.
Yeah, they're not country singers.
And that's, it just, the choice doesn't work is what I'm trying to say. That's it. But Ed calls the couple a lovely couple and says he thinks they have a great future. I'm sure they're probably divorced. I don't know. That's rude to say, but if you're in that couple and you're still together, then reach out.
Hopefully they worked it out.
Hopefully they did, but Nothing Man afterwards is very, very good. The crowd sings along really, really well on this. And as mentioned on Nothing Man specifically, I think I mentioned about a song the other week, and I can't remember which song it was, but Nothing Man is the type of version where the band was not prompting the crowd to do anything on. Nowadays they do. Nowadays it's like, come on, oh, she don't want everybody into it. Everybody get involved. But this happens naturally. And I always think that those are the best versions of Nothing Man. For the 1000th time, Seattle 2000 is the greatest version of Nothing Man of all time. That's how Nothing Man should always sound. And that doesn't even have crowd involved on it. It's just the song straight from the heart. I think that this is straight from the heart, and the crowd just took an interest in it and took it all the way.
Yeah, another one of the great underrated songs. Like this set is full of them, but whenever Nothing Man is in a set, it always elevates it, and it's always a big crowd moment. And yeah, like they do get a little more theatrical with it in the later years. Like he'll be more obvious about wanting those reactions and getting the crowd to go, but yeah, this is one that the crowd just took and made it their own. It's one of their great songs that doesn't get played enough.
So Once and Alive repeats from night one. Guess what? We do get repeats from night one into night two, especially during this era where people will say now, oh, well, they played, Do the Evolution's been the popular one this tour. Why'd they play it in 2 nights in a row? There's 7 songs that are repeats in this show. And that's fairly common. Just keep that in mind. For the people that think that they never do it or they used to never do it, that's not the case. There's 7 repeats, and Once and Alive were back to back in the night before. So before Once, there are more Leash chants during here, and no, that was not the case. They did not go with that. But Once to me felt pretty slow, a little bit sludgy, not crazy about this version at all. Alive, closing the encore one, has the entire crowd pumping their fists. And then as Ed kind of jumps in on the hey chants, he sings along with them as they're doing it. And he kind of goes and he pumps his fist a little bit. A lot of it is him looking out into the crowd, taking it in. And you can tell, thinking in the back of his head, the 2-night stay is dwindling down to its final moments.
Yeah, Once is interesting because there's a tag in there that isn't on Live Footsteps, another one where we're going to have to get with Dave about this. Because, like, in the bridge, in the old days where he would speak or sing something, he repeats, like, he goes, I spent it all, I spent it all, I spent it all. And that is the hook from a Fugazi song called Glue Man, one of the really old Fugazi songs. And I haven't seen that mentioned anywhere in the recording or reporting of this show. And I think that is a Fugazi tag. You got me at that point, obviously. But I thought that was very cool that he would throw that in there because that's one of the iconic, the iconic like picture of Fugazi with Guy hanging in the basketball goal. And they're playing in that gymnasium. That's the song they were playing. Very cool to just kind of throw that in a song like Once.
That's something that they've done before too. I can't remember the era, but I'm sure it was 1992 or something like that. But yeah, Glue Man has been a part of a Pearl Jam show before. Encore 2 time. It says we have a day off tomorrow, so Philly can wait. We've got a couple more for you. He has to take a picture of him and the crowd together for his friend Kelly Slater. Kelly Slater was involved this weekend at Ohana, I believe, as obviously surfing in California all goes together. I think Kelly Slater was mentioned at another show we've done really recently, so that's Kelly Slater comes up a lot. They're friends. So this seemed to be taken on a real camera as opposed to a flip phone. So, Drop the Leash chants are back. Stone whispers something into Ed's ear. Matt is matching the chant on the drums of the Drop the Leash chant. And it sort of leads to a little bit of an impromptu jam where Ed is singing, I'm going to do what I want when I want. Pretty much the same kind of response to the Spin the Black Circle. Incorrigible, point well taken. I'll drink to that. Maybe next year. He kept his promise, you guys. You can't say that Ed doesn't keep promises.
Yep.
He kept his promise. Speaking of Spin the Black Circle, guys, Spin the Black Circle is the song right here. Glorify G is the next song. You is the next song. Dropping it down. Like a leash, yeah. That's gotta be
Still trolling.
That's the I seem to recognize your breath from that first Madison Square Garden show in '98. That's that moment right there. Spin the Black Circle was fantastic. I think this whole section is fantastic. Glorified G2, there's another lyric change to I got too much power in my hand as he's doing the I can steal your heart from you. He does the I got too much power in my hand. Like they just sound excellent and atypical for an encore too. So it does feel like you're kind of going a little bit deep cutty, especially with you for sure. That isn't going to happen at a more normal arena show. So you're getting more fan service here, which is excellent.
Yeah, on paper, they've already done a live, they've already done Porch. You would expect like, oh, Better Man, Black, Rearview Mirror, something like that. But yeah, they go way the other end on this encore too. I mean, Spin the Black Circle into Glorify G into You is not something you ever think to get to open up an encore two at a Pearl Jam show. But yeah, like I said, just giving more little gems for this crowd. I thought You was actually really great as well. That's another great underrated one that hasn't been played nearly enough, only 25 times, but always really fun.
I was going to talk about that. So if I told you without looking at any statistics that You had been played 14 times to this point, would you believe me? Because I didn't believe that number when looking at it. I thought it was more like 7.
Yeah, I know they got on a little bit of a run with it a few times. 14 is still a real low number, don't get me wrong, but yeah, I probably would have guessed under 10.
Yeah, a couple times in 2000, 2003, a couple times too, 5 in 2000, 3 in 2003, 2 in 2004, and then 4 total in 2005. So yeah, I mean, that's not much, but when you think of You and you think of the years afterwards, a couple times in 06, a couple times in 08, twice in 11, once in 14, once or twice in 18, it would dwindle. There would only be 11 more performances after this, including the Wrigley one that happened a couple months ago. So, but I love You as well. Take that for what it's worth. And the ending of You always catches me off guard a little bit because it kind of revs up and it gets to a good place and it's kind of atypical of the pop vibe of the song. So yeah, just nice performance here. So for the end, you're going to invite Slater-Kinney back on stage, and then after that, you're going to invite somebody else back on stage. So Leaving Here, which was played this past weekend, going into Rockin' in the Free World. Slater-Kinney again, this is not new for me. I never liked their involvement on Leaving Here because I think it sounds like bubblegum beach pop from the 1950s. It's just a me thing, I know, but it's grating to me for some reason. I have to bring it up every time I hear it with them. So let it be what it is, and let me just mention it. If you don't feel the same, that's okay. That's all right.
I like it. Leaving Here is a song that, of course, they're going to bring up and they're going to want to have some female vocal involvement on. I think it adds to it. They're there just to have fun with it. I like it.
I don't hate fun. I just don't care for this. Let's just put it that way. But Rockin' is fun enough, and the participation on Rockin' is a little bit more substantial than Slater-Kinney's participation on Leaving Here. So they're going to invite a legend onto the stage, guys. Love Kiss or not, Ace Frehley is coming out, and Stone's introducing him, which I thought was rather interesting because when he came out to do Black Diamond in '08, I think it was Mike that introduced him, and that makes a lot of sense. Like, if you think Kiss fans in this band, it's Mike and Cameron, because I think Cameron was in a Kiss cover band at some point. But Stone calls Ace Frehley his hero and says, I don't think Mike would be playing guitar if it wasn't for him. So they're going to play Rockin' in the Free World with him. And it's really entertaining. Before talking about the version, there's something that popped into my mind. Speaking of Black Diamond, the Black Diamond tag that came from the night before, I'm wondering if he was backstage, if he was watching the show.
Yeah,
And
probably
they thought about
side stage. Yeah,
it's not Ace Frehley's first foray into hanging out at Pearl Jam shows. We know 1994 at the Paramount, he was there. And him talking to Ed is significant after that show because that was kind of the time that Dave A thought, oh, I'm out of the band, because he kind of sneered at him or something like that. So, but Ace Frehley, Stone, you get to hear Stone saying he's a badass motherfucker. So Stone with his woos and motherfuckers at this show, like, he needs to talk more. Get that out of him,
so
please.
Good. He's so good. The reason Stone has to intro him is because Mike and Ed and Matt are just so starstruck. Like, you see Mike and Ed doing the "we're not worthy," like the bowing down to him as he comes out on stage. It's super fun. I'm not a Kiss fan at all, but Ace Frehley, I mean, he looks like kind of a washed up rocker dude on stage. Like, he's got that stereotypical, like, yeah, like back in the day, you know. But he still can play. Exactly. Yeah. No makeup, unfortunately.
Seen some shit.
Was he the star child, or was that to have that? Was he the cat?
No,
I don't remember.
No, Peter was the cat. I only know that because I know he's for a name. No, Star was Stanley, I think.
Okay. Then
my Kiss knowledge is very, very limited, but he definitely was not the Star.
People are yelling.
I don't even know what the other two ones are, to be honest with you.
I know.
I guess the demon is Gene Simmons, but I don't know what he is. That's just like, I don't know. It's got a little like Ziggy Stardust to it.
Oh, it's the spaceman.
Spaceman.
Ace Frehley is the spaceman. There
okay, that makes
Star Child, spaceman, same difference.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Again, probably somewhat little Bowie thrown in there. I don't know. Probably not. It's the same era. But
yeah,
Ace is the ace. Let's put it that way. Because when you go into Rockin' in the Free World and you play the song, it pretty much has a pattern to it that you go, okay, intro, and then you go, keep on rocking in the free world. Then you kind of have that bridgeway into the verse, and you go back into the chorus, then you go solo, then you go third, and on and on and on. Ace is like, fuck that. I'm going to solo after the first chorus, and I'm going to solo for about 2 fucking minutes here. And it's phenomenal. Let him go. Jeff and Mike are staring at him like they could have just dropped their instruments and just stuck their tongue out and just gushed over that. It was awesome. I'm not a Kiss fan either, but that was awesome to watch. It really was. Mike takes the second solo on this. The crowd is obviously having a blast, of course, but he's like almost like lifting his guitar up to be like, here, look at me, Dad, look at me, I'm doing it too, like showing his hero what he got, you know? It's kind of like not unlike Crazy Mary, where it gets into like a little bit of a dual co-op shred fest at some point, you know what I mean? It's phenomenal. It's exactly what you want when Ace Frehley joins the stage.
Yeah, exactly. You know what you're getting from the spaceman. But yeah, I mean, something doing a complete 180. Katrina had just happened, and he like throws in, for the New Orleans man. There's still thing. I don't think the fallout had quite gotten to what it would be, but yeah, that was very recent to the show as well.
I think now you got to say, unfortunately, the Asheville man. So, and a lot of places in Tennessee as well.
Right.
Unfortunately, that has to be relevant. But yeah, Ace Frehley, that's how you're going to end this show. What a night. And to end it off on that is special. Making moments, for sure. Now let's pick 3 of them. Go on. What do you got from this one? You can pick any 3, and I'll probably agree that they deserve to be there.
Yeah, so many. I mean, I could probably pick 10, but my number 3 is going to be Don't Give Me No Lip. My number 2 is Immortality, and my number 1 is Gone. Come on.
Yeah, Gone is a great moment, and that's going to be my number 3 because I don't know why. let's just. I'm trying to make a hard decision easier by just getting that one out of the way. I think, but really these are like 1A, 1B, 1C, whatever it is. Number 2. I'm gonna have to say, Do the Evolution was awesome at this show, and the reason why is because my number 1 is present tense. And I think that anytime you can hook anyone from the show that early with those 2 songs or songs that are like that and tell you what kind of show this is going to be, define the show right away, you have something there. Like, it's not like after the show, you're like, whoa, what an open. You're like, holy crap, we got all that and we got a great open. There's a lot going on. This was quite phenomenal. I want to see where we go from here. So let's just get to the point. What does this do?
This is a show that has a lot of those intangible things that you look for. I thought the main set was as flawless as a main set can probably be. This is about as good as it gets as far as main set construction. You got a little bit of everything. And of course, there's a big moment in the encore. There's all kinds of deep cuts and stuff that you want when you listen for a show like this. The band was locked in. I mean, I have to give this one a 10.
Yeah, look, the Slater-Kinney stuff notwithstanding, like that's not going to impact my rating on anything. That was just 2 things that I really didn't care for in this show. But you got a live debut of a song. You got red hot sections. You got improvs. You got guest stars. You got songs that do exactly what you need to do. And you got a crowd that wants all of it and wants even more than that and is trying to push them the whole entire time. And there's no pushback. It's, yes, you deserve all of this and more. This episode, this show, Atlantic City Night 2, is in the Live on 4 Legs 2024 Hall of Fame class. It is a 10 out of 10 on both sides. Indy, where does this belong?
That belongs in a museum.
It belongs in a museum. That's right. We've had a couple of these so far. I think we're on 4 so far for the year. So we're starting to build here. We're starting to build. Like, you can't have 10 every year like we did that one year. That was an anomaly. But after a while, we wanted to get all the big ones out soon to get people listening to them. But they're still out there. They're still gems. And this is why I wanted to do these shows, because I knew we were going to get this. And I didn't want to waste another Hall of Fame episode, but I wanted you guys to hear how this show was broken down. And I think you got a good one out of that. So as far as next week's episode goes, we've had a lot of things planned out. Every time that we talk about schedules and stuff like that, and people be like, oh, when are you going to get to my request or something? I'm like, well, we're booked for the year. And usually we are, but there was something in the schedule that I'm like, just now, kind of like Ed calling an audible on stage. It's like, no, you know what? I don't like that here. I think I'm going to move that. And since you have a little bit of a scheduling conflict next week, we're going to try to get Javier in, which shouldn't be a problem, I don't think. So perhaps here's what we'll do. Since we haven't done a South American show this year, I think that might be the direction that I pitched to Javi. So let's think about that. Let's see how it all transpires, and you'll find out next week what we do. How about that? But that's going to be your little tease, because I don't know at this moment. But I do know that you will get an episode, because you will always get an episode. And if you don't, then I'm going to let you all know. So, but it'll happen. So, hey, thanks everybody for listening in. You guys are great. You guys are awesome. Pearl Jam has a great crowd. We have a great crowd. And when the crowd makes noise, that's when the crowd is the best. And when you make noise, hopefully it is by subscribing to our podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you decide that you like to subscribe to podcasts on. Feel free. Also, you can leave us a rating of 5 stars. That's another way to speak out. Commenting, obviously, that's a way to speak out. Let the people know what you think about this show, and hopefully they're convinced that they can listen to this and get the kind of memories back that we all strive for when we listen to this band and go over the bootlegs and all that, and a little bit of insight and info, whatever we decide to give you on that week. So that's that for this one. This may be the end. We're here, but not for much longer. And although we may be parting ways, miss you already, miss you always, I have no idea what's going to happen next week. Whatever does, see you on the pod.
I want to rock and roll all night and part of every day.
All right, this one involves some crowd participation. I want you guys to say, "You're the cat." When the song stops,
That's it.
"You're the cat." So practice. No, say it like this. "You're the cat."
All right.
Again. Okay.
I know it sounds ridiculous, but it all works out.
Yeah. You'll be on the live album for sure if you do. If you say "You're the cat," that's me saying "You're the cat." It'll be really fucking funny and neat.
I hate you most of all.